On April 26, 2013, 26-year-old Jessica Lynn Haringa reported for her evening shift at the Exxon gas station in Norton Shores, Michigan. She was a young mother raising a 3-year-old boy while supporting her household at a time when her boyfriend was unemployed. At 4:35 p.m., she clocked in, beginning what seemed to be a normal Friday evening at the station. The hours passed without incident, and customers were served as usual. Nothing appeared unusual until just after 11 o'clock that night, when a man arrived at the pumps and noticed the station was empty. Jessica's vehicle was still parked outside. Inside, her belongings remained untouched. Her purse, containing more than $400, was sitting on the counter. Her keys and jacket were also left behind. Even the register drawer still contained money. The absence of theft or disturbance suggested she had not walked away voluntarily. Something more concerning had taken place. Investigators soon discovered small but troubling traces of evidence. Faint drops of blood were located on the floor inside. Near the blood, officers recovered a small piece of plastic later identified as the battery cover of a Walther P22 pistol laser sight, along with 2 watch batteries. The door leading toward that area could only be opened from the inside, reinforcing suspicions that Jessica had been forcibly removed rather than choosing to leave. Later that night, an important eyewitness account emerged. The station manager and her husband recalled a silver minivan entering through the back service drive with its headlights off. They observed the vehicle parked behind the station. At the rear, a man appeared to be opening and closing the hatch as though adjusting something inside before slamming it shut and driving west along the service road. The manager remembered the driver wearing a red or orange sweatshirt. Her husband described the van as a silver Chrysler Town & Country and noted the driver's messy, wavy hair. Earlier, a friend had stopped by around 8:50 p.m. without noticing anything unusual, and the final customer had seen nothing amiss. Yet the evidence, the belongings left behind, the blood, and the van's movements convinced investigators this was not a robbery. It was abduction. Following Jessica Haringa's disappearance, investigators immediately canvassed the surrounding area for witnesses and physical evidence. Detectives examined nearby businesses and homes for surveillance footage. One grainy camera provided a small but significant clue. A Chrysler Town & Country minivan was captured near the area around the time Jessica vanished. Although the image lacked clarity, it matched the description already given by the station manager and her husband, who had observed a silver van parked behind the Exxon with its headlights turned off. Investigators also uncovered another disturbing detail during interviews. A woman who had visited the Exxon station the day before Jessica disappeared recalled an unusual encounter. While she was speaking with Jessica, a man approached and inserted himself into the conversation. He told her that Jessica was not really alone and insisted that her customers would protect her. The remark was unsettling at the time, but significance became clearer after Jessica vanished. This woman was later able to provide enough detail for authorities to create a composite sketch of the man she encountered. The sketch offered investigators a starting point, but no immediate identification. Despite these leads, the investigation faced significant hurdles. Chrysler Town & Country vans were extremely common in Michigan, with more than 15,000 registered in the state. Approximately 5,000 of them were silver, making it difficult to narrow the search. Investigators also examined the forensic evidence collected from the Exxon scene. The small plastic piece later identified as the battery cover for a Walther P22 pistol laser sight, along with the watch batteries, pointed toward firearms involvement. Yet these items offered no direct link to a specific suspect. As weeks passed, the lack of progress frustrated investigators and devastated Jessica's family. The eyewitness accounts, vehicle sightings, and forensic traces collectively suggested a targeted abduction rather than a random disappearance. Still, without a solid suspect, the investigation stalled, leaving critical questions unanswered and the case unresolved. In the weeks following Jessica Haringa's disappearance, the Norton Shores community rallied in support of her family. Vigils were held, flyers were distributed, and local residents remained determined to keep her name and face visible. Volunteers worked alongside relatives to cover neighborhoods with posters, while social media became another tool to spread her photograph. For Jessica's family, maintaining public awareness was essential. They wanted constant reminders that she was missing and needed to be found. At the same time, police continued to investigate every possible lead. Tips were pursued, and a composite sketch based on the account from the woman who encountered a suspicious man at the station was widely circulated. The description of a silver Chrysler Town and Country van was repeated across news reports. Detectives examined potential suspects and tried to match vehicles, but progress remained slow. Despite the purse, the blood evidence, the plastic battery cover, and the eyewitness accounts, no direct suspect emerged. As the months went on, the trail grew colder. Surveillance footage was too grainy to provide clarity. The sheer number of similar vans across Michigan made it impossible to narrow the search. Without stronger evidence or a definitive witness, the investigation stalled. Eventually, the case shifted from active pursuit to inactive status. For Jessica's loved ones, this development was devastating. They had never accepted the idea that she had simply vanished. They continued to hold vigils, organize events, and speak to the media. They believed she was still alive and hoped for a future break. The transition from active search to cold case left them waiting in grief, unwilling to let her memory fade. On June 29, 2014, 36-year-old Rebecca Sue Bletch left her home in Dalton Township, Michigan, for an evening jog. The route was familiar, and the outing was part of her routine. When she did not return home, neighbors grew concerned. Shortly after, her body was discovered lying in the middle of a road. The first calls to emergency services described what appeared to be a tragic accident. To those who first saw her, the scene looked like she had been struck by a vehicle. However, investigators quickly realized the circumstances told a different story. Forensic examination revealed that Rebecca had been shot 3 times in the back of the head at close range. This discovery changed the case instantly from a suspected accident to a confirmed homicide. Her body showed additional injuries. Bruises were found on her wrists, hands, back, and legs, suggesting that she'd been assaulted before her death. The violence of the attack indicated more than a random encounter. At the scene, investigators recovered 3 spent shell casings. Ballistics confirmed they came from a .222 caliber firearm. This physical evidence became one of the most significant details in the case. Still, with no immediate suspects or eyewitnesses, detectives faced an uphill battle. There were no clear signs of robbery, no witnesses to the attack, and no immediate explanation for why Rebecca had been targeted. As the investigation unfolded, authorities considered the possibility that her killing was random, yet its brutality, combined with its proximity in both time and location to the disappearance of Jessica Haringa, raised further concerns. Detectives began to quietly explore whether the 2 crimes could be linked. At this stage, however, the case remained unsolved, and Rebecca's family was left without answers. The recovered shell casings, though, would later prove crucial. In April 2016, a 16-year-old girl's quick decision changed the course of several investigations. That night, she had left a party and found herself walking alone. She had no phone and was unfamiliar with the area. As she tried to make her way home, a silver minivan slowed beside her. The driver offered assistance. Initially cautious, she asked to borrow his phone. He seemed agreeable, and she stepped into the van to make a call. Almost immediately, the situation turned. Instead of waiting, the driver accelerated, trapping her inside. He then produced a handgun and pointed it at her. In that terrifying moment, she realized she was being abducted. Acting instinctively, she made a desperate choice. She threw herself out of the moving vehicle, barefoot and injured but determined to escape. Despite her injuries, she managed to run and call for help. Her decision to jump likely saved her life. The teenager's account gave investigators a new opportunity. She described the driver as a white male in his 40s with messy dark hair. Based on her description, a composite sketch was quickly created. Police then began comparing her account with vehicle registrations. The van she described was a silver Chrysler Town and Country, matching the same make and model connected to the Exxon station on the night Jessica Haringa disappeared. When shown photographs, the teenager immediately identified Jeffrey Willis as the man who had abducted her. Willis was a registered owner of a silver Chrysler Town and Country. This was the first time investigators had a concrete suspect, not only for the attempted abduction, but also for the earlier cases. Her survival and identification provided the critical link. For the first time, multiple unsolved cases converged on a single name. Once Jeffrey Willis was identified as a suspect in the teenager's escape, investigators secured warrants to search both his home and his vehicle. What they uncovered would connect him not only to the attempted abduction, but also to two of the most troubling unsolved cases in Muskegon County. Inside Willis's silver Chrysler Town and Country van, police discovered a disturbing collection of items. Among them were syringes filled with insulin, which could be used to incapacitate someone. They also found handcuffs, rope, a ball gag, and pills. This so-called kit suggested preparation for control and restraint. Each object carried unsettling implications, reinforcing the idea that the teenager's abduction was not an isolated act. The most significant discovery inside the van was a firearm. It was a .222 caliber handgun, and ballistics testing later confirmed it matched the bullets recovered from the scene where Rebecca Sue Bletch had been murdered. Investigators noted the gun's serial number had been deliberately scratched off, and its laser sight was missing a battery cover. This detail stood out. The small plastic battery cover left behind at the Exxon station during Jessica Horinga's disappearance matched the missing piece from this very weapon. The connection between the two cases was no longer theoretical. The search extended to Willis's computer, where digital evidence provided further links. Investigators discovered a folder labeled VIX. Inside were subfolders with initials JLH and RSB, corresponding to Jessica Lynn Horinga and Rebecca Sue Bletch. These files suggested deliberate organization of material related to the two women. Even more chilling was a password-protected file. Its code was J4L27H13, directly referencing Jessica's initials and the exact date she went missing. This file demonstrated planning and obsession, leaving little doubt about Willis's involvement. The combination of physical and digital evidence tied the cases together in ways investigators had struggled to establish for years. The weapon matched the homicide. The missing battery cover matched the Exxon scene. The digital folders pointed directly to the victims. Collectively, these discoveries formed the backbone of the prosecution's case against Jeffrey Willis. What began with a teenager's desperate escape now provided authorities with tangible proof that linked Willis to the disappearance of Jessica Horinga and the murder of Rebecca Sue Bletch. As investigators built their case against Jeffrey Willis, attention also turned toward his cousin, Kevin Blum. Blum worked as a Michigan prison guard and soon became entangled in the investigation through his own statements. During questioning, Blum initially made a shocking claim. He told investigators that Willis had once summoned him and revealed Jessica Horinga. According to Blum's first account, she was unconscious, injured, and wrapped in a sheet. This disturbing statement suggested direct knowledge of Jessica's fate. However, Blum's cooperation did not remain consistent. He later retracted portions of his story, creating confusion for investigators. His withdrawal of critical details weakened the credibility of his initial claim and complicated the process of confirming what had happened. Prosecutors eventually charged Blum with lying to police. He pleaded guilty, and the court sentenced him to time served for that offense. Despite this retraction, Blum's involvement in the case was not finished. Under continued scrutiny and further investigation, he later admitted to playing a more direct role. Blum acknowledged that he had helped Willis dispose of Jessica's remains. This confession shifted his position from being a potential witness to being criminally implicated as an accessory after the fact. For his role, Blum was convicted and received a sentence of probation. He was also ordered to wear a GPS ankle monitor. His evolving testimony, from an initial shocking statement to retraction and later admission, complicated the investigation but ultimately provided corroboration that supported prosecutors in connecting Willis to Jessica's disappearance. In 2018, Jeffrey Willis stood trial for two of Muskegon County's most haunting cases: the disappearance of Jessica Horinga and the murder of Rebecca Sue Bletch. Although Jessica's body had never been recovered, prosecutors relied on a combination of circumstantial and forensic evidence to build their case. They pointed to Willis's repeated visits to the Exxon station in the weeks before Jessica vanished, suggesting he had been watching her. Records confirmed he was absent from work the night she disappeared, and phone data placed him near his grandfather's home, just minutes from the gas station, around 11 o'clock. For Rebecca's case, ballistics provided the strongest link. The .222 caliber handgun recovered from Willis's van matched the shell casings left at the scene of her murder. Alongside this, prosecutors emphasized the disturbing items found in the van: syringes filled with insulin, restraints, rope, and a ball gag. These, combined with the files discovered on his computer, including the folder labeled with Jessica's and Rebecca's initials, painted a picture of deliberate planning and predatory behavior. The defense argued the case was built on assumptions. They claimed the surveillance footage from the Exxon was too grainy to identify Willis or his vehicle, and they pressed the absence of Jessica's body as a gap in prosecution's evidence. Despite these arguments, the jury reached a decision quickly. After only 90 minutes of deliberation, Willis was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In court, Willis showed no remorse. He mocked the families, turned away as they spoke, and at one point blew them a kiss. For Jessica's relatives, the verdict brought some measure of accountability, but not closure. Her body has never been found, and her family continues to hope for answers. Even after conviction, they believe the case remains unfinished.